We are the only app that you can download and from $10 already within 1 minute, and without doing any KYC, AML registration or verification, you can buy your first sats. You can do this 24/7, and you receive the sats or the Bitcoin directly into your non-custodial wallet. So that's really a world's first, and something that I haven't came across in Europe or anywhere else in the world.
Welcome to the Business Bitcoinization Show, the show dedicated to helping you enrich your life and grow your business with Bitcoin, the hardest money on planet Earth. I'm your host, Josh Friedemann, and our guest today is Julian Liniger, who is the co-founder and CEO of Relai, Europe's easiest Bitcoin app. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the European Bitcoin landscape, so to speak, as well as Julian's journey to starting Relai. I think you're going to enjoy today's conversation, but before we get to it, we do have this week's Bitcoin Meetup Spotlight, and this week, it's the Westwood LA Bitcoin Meetup. The Westwood LA Bitcoin Meetup takes place on Wednesdays in Westwood, Los Angeles. The group exists to create a space for Bitcoiners to get together and enjoy a good time. It's hosted by Toxic Happy Hour co-host Anders, so you'll get first dibs on updates for events like the Toxic Happy Hour Pleb Party happening in Miami during Bitcoin 2023. You'll also get access to discount codes for all major Bitcoin conferences through the in-person meetup or by listening to the virtual Toxic Happy Hour hangout on Twitter Spaces every weekday afternoon. For more info, go to meetup.com/BitcoinLA or follow Anders on Twitter @Anders_. And if you don't happen to be in the Los Angeles area, but want to find a Bitcoin meetup near you, I encourage you to download the Oshi app where you'll be able to do just that. Now, we're going to get to our interview with Julian right after this. There are dozens of places where you can buy Bitcoin. So where do you go? Well, since the beginning, I've gone to Swan. Swan Bitcoin offers ways for you to make instant buys or to dollar cost average into Bitcoin. And if you're looking to purchase $100,000 or more over time, Swan Private gives you a one-on-one rep who can help you navigate any questions you might have. Maybe you're a business owner looking to give your employees a consistent Bitcoin bonus. If so, Swan's Bitcoin Benefit Plan is your answer. In fact, I can't think of a lot of good reasons not to at least check out Swan. So, to get started, go to swan.com/bizbit. And if you're on the fence about Bitcoin, just trying to learn more, you can download your free copy of Inventing Bitcoin from Swan. People who don't know about Swan are buying this excellent overview of Bitcoin on Amazon right now. But you know about Swan. So go to swan.com/bizbit. Then there's River Financial. River lets you dollar cost average as well and charges zero fees when you do. But there's something else that makes River stand out to me even more: cash flow. If you like your money making money, River's hosted Bitcoin mining service might be just what you're looking for. Through River, you can buy new Bitcoin mining hardware that they'll then run for you. Or you can select a miner that's already up and running and start receiving Bitcoin in as little as 5 days. This is a great option to grow your personal Bitcoin stack, but it can also be part of your IRA or business account. Go to bizbitshow.com/river to get $100 in Bitcoin for every miner you purchase through River. That's bizbitshow.com/river. And last but certainly not least, we have Oshi. If you're looking for a risk-free way to take Bitcoin for a test drive in your business, Oshi is for you. Oshi lets you give your customers cash back in Bitcoin using the Bitcoin Lightning Network. Merchants love the Lightning Network because it provides instant payment settlement and makes chargebacks a thing of the past. It's great for you, but what's in it for the customer? Oshi changes this. With Oshi, you can set up promotions to incentivize customers to pay in Bitcoin. There are zero processing fees, and you only pay the 2.5% platform fee when customers actually make purchases. To see if Oshi's right for you, go to oshi.team/bizbit. Once again, that's oshi.team/bizbit. All those links will be down in the show notes. And now, on to today's interview. Julian, welcome to the podcast.
Josh, thank you very much for having me. Looking forward.
So I like to start off every single interview with a few questions that help us to get to know you a little bit better and give us some insight for our own lives. Are you ready for these?
Of course.
When and how did you first learn about Bitcoin?
So that was in 2015 when a friend of mine who was really a techie, and I'm not, I'm a business guy, he introduced me to Bitcoin and crypto at this point. And I thought it was fascinating, to have something of value that you can exchange and transact with 24/7 without a bank or a government, like without any third party, just basically value or money on the internet, something you can trade 24/7 on the internet without any third party. That was fascinating to me, but it took me another two and a half years probably to really get into it and really to understand how revolutionizing it could be potentially. And then I spent half a year in the States in 2017, where I did an exchange semester. And that's really, I think, kind of where it hit me. And then I came back from this, finished my studies, and wanted to be independent in this field. So yeah, that's then basically how it all led to me building my own Bitcoin startup.
And the next question is this: what's an insight or fact about Bitcoin that you wish everyone understood?
Bitcoin is really fundamentally, and that's also something I only understood like probably end of last year, is fundamentally the first public financial infrastructure that we've ever had. You know, we had gold, which worked well as kind of a sound money, a store of value. But then the whole infrastructure, that's just a resource, right? But then the whole financial infrastructure based around central bank and commercial banks, they were all, this is all private. Like the Fed is a private institution. The European Central Bank is a financial institution. The BIS, the Bank of International Settlement, which is at the core of all this, is fundamentally a private institution. And obviously all the commercial banks that we know, like JP Morgan, where you guys live, and maybe UBS, where I live in Switzerland, and all these kind of big banks, they are obviously all private. So we never had before a financial network that was public, that was open to anyone, that can't be censored, and that is decentralized. And that's, I think, the power of Bitcoin, is that we can all now own one small piece of this first public financial infrastructure.
What is the Bitcoin resource you most recommend to other people?
Well, that's easy. It's Saifedean's book called The Bitcoin Standard, obviously. There's now the Fiat Standards, which I haven't read yet. Apparently, it's also very good. But the Bitcoin Standard is really, I think, something that for someone who has a bit of time to devote, like maybe a month or two, or however long someone takes to read the book and understand the book, it's mind-blowing. And I think it's really changing everyone's view, no matter how critical this person is, that we really have a problem with our current fiat-based financial system, and that we need something like a Bitcoin-based financial system.
And you probably won't be surprised to hear that's the most recommended resource. The Fiat Standard is also excellent. I have read that. It is thicker than the Bitcoin Standard. I may have enjoyed it a little bit more. I think part of it was that the Bitcoin Standard gave you like the mental furniture on which to hang these new thoughts, where previously you come into the Bitcoin Standard and for most people, it's like totally new concepts. And then I also saw, I think it's Principles of Economics that Saifedean's coming out with as well. And it's an even thicker book. So it sounds like each single step of the way, the books are getting thicker and thicker, but they're all, so far they've been excellent. And I have not yet dug into Principles of Economics, but I'm looking forward to that. So question number 4, beyond Bitcoin, what is a resource, tool, or an idea that's been helpful to you or your business recently?
It's also an idea or a concept that is also written in a classic book called Essentialism by Greg McQuon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And it's really a very good tool and kind of a good mindset to be in. Like this whole essentialism concept is really I think the subline of the book is the disciplined pursuit of less. So it's really about, it's not saying no to a lot of things at the get-go. It's really about analyzing more in detail what is really worth my time as an individual or as a group of people working on something like in a business. Like really having a good overview of what options are there, and really analyzing or deciding which one to go for, because our the time that we have is really our most valuable resources, and we really want to make sure that every day, every hour is spent on something that is worthwhile, right? In order to achieve the goal that I want. And the thinner we spread into different activities, the less power we can bring to the floor. If we only focus 100% on one thing, then with this, we can really make a big impact and a big progress. And I feel like that for me personally, but also for our business has already changed quite a lot, even though I'm not even through the book yet.
So question number 5, our final question, we call it our arbitrary but insightful question, is this. As a general life principle, is it better to ask why or why not?
Yeah, I think generally it's why not, right? I mean, that's how opportunities arise. That's how I guess businesses are built. That's how innovations are coming to life. Is not, being closed to things, but as a principle, being open to new things. It doesn't matter that, again, coming back to the essentialism approach, that then all these options are being pursued, but definitely one should be open to pretty much anything. And so, for example, also I am teaching a course about Bitcoin and crypto finance for Swiss bankers. We had more than 600 bankers taking this course in the last 3 years. And usually these bankers are kind of more in the why approach, right? Why should we do this? Is this making us money? Is this saving costs? And you see that at the beginning of this course, usually these people are very close-minded to something like Bitcoin or crypto. And then we are also trying within these 3-day course to get them to a why not mental model. Where okay, let's look at this. What new innovations is this bringing? What new concepts? How could this maybe change the world to a better? And also, then a lot of opportunities to make money and stuff like that can be built around it. Obviously, there's a whole ecosystem and industry that can be built around it. But I think to be open for a new future and for a lot of good things to happen requires kind of a why not attitude.
Excellent. Well, today, Julian, we're here to talk about Relai and what you guys are doing when it comes to Bitcoin in Europe. I'd love for you to just start off by sharing with us a little bit about the business and where you're looking to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm now 30 years old, and when I started Relai, it was around 3 years ago. When I studied in the US, it was 2017, so 6 years ago, and I came back and I finished my studies and I finished work. I still had like a half a year or a year worth of work at a consulting business. But I already knew like I want to do my own thing, and I knew the thing that I'm most passionate about is Bitcoin. And so I started the first business, a consulting business, because that was the only thing I knew is Bitcoin and consulting. So I thought, why not open a Bitcoin consulting business for financial institutions? Because I saw that really banks and asset managers, they are very far away from this whole Bitcoin and decentralized finance topic. And I thought somehow we need to bring these two together. I was not super successful, I would say. We had a couple of good projects. We had some nice clients, bigger private banks and retail banks in Switzerland, but it didn't really, take off. But out of this other course that I mentioned, it's called CCFE, where we have then educated really a lot of bankers. This was a good bootstrapped, business that is now also generating free cash flow, which is nice. But I'm not operationally involved anymore. In the end, what really, was my big passion and what became the project I wanted to pursue on the long term was Relai, which we founded or went live with in 2020, summer 2020. So exactly pretty much 3 years ago. And we set off with the mission of just bringing Bitcoin very easily to everyone, because our thesis is that in the next 10 years, billions of people and trillions of dollars will flow into Bitcoin. And there needs to be a super easy way for everyone, like small investors, big investors, but not only individuals, but also businesses, to acquire and get access to Bitcoin. And that's really what we are pursuing every day. We have since, like in the last 3 years, raised around 7 million in venture capital in 3 rounds. We have built a team of a bit more than 20 people now. And we are growing well with around 200,000 app downloads and around 65,000 active users across Europe, mainly in Germany, Switzerland, but also in other countries like France, Italy, Spain. And yeah, that's still what we're doing every day.
So in the opening, your bio said that Relai is Europe's easiest Bitcoin app. What makes it that way? And also, if you could talk about maybe how the European Bitcoin framework is maybe legally. Like, can any country use Relai, or are there other things to take into consideration?
Yeah, good question. So first is why are we the easiest? We are the only app that you can download and from $10 already within 1 minute, and without doing any KYC, AML registration or verification, you can buy your first sats. You can do this 24/7, and you receive the sats or the Bitcoin directly into your non-custodial wallet. So that's really a world's first, and something that I haven't came across in Europe or anywhere else in the world. Because most of the other crypto exchanges or Bitcoin brokers, they usually require you to do KYC, AML verification at the beginning, and usually they are custodial, so they hold your funds, they hold your Bitcoin, and you need to somehow withdraw them, which in the end, this whole onboarding and the whole withdrawal process from the first thought you have that, oh, I want to buy Bitcoin, until you actually have the Bitcoin into your self-custody with your private keys, is quite a lengthy and cumbersome process. And we basically took that process and compressed it to within 1 or 2 minutes if you're lucky. And so that's really what sets us apart. Now in Europe, it's kind of I don't know, maybe it's a bit more complicated than in the US, because there's so many different countries and different jurisdictions, but also there's the EU. So the EU is really, I think, 40, 42, 44 countries. So almost all the European countries are in this kind of organization, which is called the EU. They have the same currency, it's the euro. But they used to have all different currencies 20 years ago when the euro didn't exist, or 30 years ago. I don't know when the euro came into existence, but before they all had their own currencies, and they still have their own economies, their own cultures, right? But they have just this legal framework on top of it, which is called the EU, European Union. But there are some exceptions, and Switzerland is one exception, UK is another. So Switzerland has always been independent. The UK is now, for a couple of years, independent since the Brexit. So they basically are not part of this. And so we, as we are based in Switzerland, we're not part of this. We can, and that's also, by the way, a reason why we can do this no KYC, no AML Bitcoin onboarding, is because in Switzerland there's a law that says up to 1K per day and 100K per year in money exchange is not, does not require such verification, which is very nice, because you can go to a bank, for example, and exchange 100 Swiss francs to a bit of gold, and you can walk out without doing any verification, AML, whatever. But that's not true for Europe. If we are, though, like for the EU, we are offering our broker service from Switzerland to other European countries. That works, but we cannot really actively market it, So it's not that we can we cannot run ads targeted to Italians, for example. We can only do targeted marketing in Switzerland. So that's a bit of a problem, but we can be open. Like if they find out about us more passively, then everyone can use us. That's also why we have a lot of users in Germany, Italy, France, Spain, etc. Now, there's a new legal framework coming up from the EU, which is called MiCA, Markets in Crypto Assets. It has just been voted in by the European Parliament 1 or 2 weeks ago, so in April 23, and it will come into effect by the end of 2024. In this process now, or in this time span, every company needs to become fully compliant with this new MiCA, and there's also a new license that if a company wants to be active in the EU, needs to acquire. So we now have a Swiss broker license, or a VASP license. It's called Virtual Asset Service Provider, and we will be soon in the process of getting a actual MiCA license in another country. So maybe in Germany or France or Italy, which then will give us access to the rest of Europe, if that makes sense. So it's a bit, it's a bit of a depends. It depends answer.
So first of all, I didn't know about the non-KYC side of things. That's really cool. Is it possible for someone in the United States to purchase through Relai, or does it still have to be within Europe?
Yeah, no, currently we are just really only available in European countries. Yeah. But in the US, there's a lot of good providers as well, like Swan, for example, or River Financial, which probably your listeners are aware of. They're not no KYC, because this is really a thing that I think wouldn't work in the US. It's really a Swiss thing that now still works in the EU. But as said, once this new MiCA regulation really comes into effect, this will also be gone. So from 2025 on, we will not be able to offer this non-KYC service anymore for EU countries. For Switzerland, we can still do it, but not for the others.
What is it like in Switzerland right now when it comes to Bitcoin? I know that, Switzerland has been held up as the standard when it comes to banking in a lot of people's minds for years. I know the whole Credit Suisse situation probably calls some of that into question. But generally speaking, would you say that the sense about Bitcoin in Switzerland is pretty open? Are people open to the idea, or do they see it as something that undermines some of what has brought them accolades from the world for so many years when it comes to their banking system?
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, there's a bottom-up and a top-down approach to this. So the bottom-up approach is like that. There's one number I have in mind is around 15 or 16% of Swiss people already have, bought Bitcoin or invested in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So and most of the people that you talk about here, they know about Bitcoin. They have educated themselves a little bit about Bitcoin. Some are still skeptic, obviously. Some are more positive or open to it. But it's also a topic that is a lot in the media. So I feel like, yeah, we're pretty much open to it as a nation, or like our people. Then the top-down approach is we're also very open in terms of the regulatory approach, the government approach. In 2018, we had one of our highest politicians. So we don't have one president, but we have 7 members of the Federal Council. And one of these at a big conference said that he wants to make Switzerland the crypto nation of the world. We already have the Crypto Valley, which is Zug, a rather small city in Zurich, but that attracted a lot of media attention, and also big foundations like the Ethereum Foundation and the Tezos Foundation. A lot of crypto activity, but at least, it started a lot of this crypto and blockchain-based industry. Zug was also quite early in accepting Bitcoin and I think other cryptocurrencies as a payment for taxes. So these local governments and also the national government is very open to this idea, to this innovation. And also a fact that not a lot of people know is that the Swiss Bitcoin Association, so BAS, Bitcoin Association of Switzerland, is the biggest one in Europe. So even though Switzerland only has 8 million people, Germany right next to it has like 10 times more, around 80 million. We still have the biggest, one of the largest, or I think the largest European Bitcoin association here with, regular meetup, regular events. Andreas Antonopoulos, for example, came to speak at one of these events and stuff like that. So Saifedean Ammous as well, I attended that one. So there's a lot going on in this regard in Bitcoin and crypto in general in Switzerland, which I think is very cool, and it's ongoing. So it was not a quick hype or fad. There's really a lot of competitions and also a lot of people on the streets that are working towards this, and they're very open to this topic.
Do you see legacy banks, the larger institutions, adopting it as well? Or do you see this as, you mentioned earlier, the bottom-up approach. Do you see a new generation of businesses and organizations rising up in the future?
Yeah, both. I think in terms of the banks, it was, at least for the last 5-6 years, it was the case that the smaller banks were more agile and more innovative in that topic. Well, probably in every topic, right? But also specifically in this Bitcoin and crypto topic, they were the early movers. So there's a bank, an online bank, a very innovative one called Swissquote, that already offers Bitcoin and crypto trading since 2017 or 18, I guess, and actually made great results with that, obviously. There's also some private banks like Marki Baumann, which is a plus 100-year-old private bank, really an institution, in Zurich and Switzerland. They are offering their wealthy clients Bitcoin and crypto as well. And there's also retail banks and a couple of more of them that already for years are active in this space. But they are more on the smaller side. The really big ones, like for example UBS or Credit Suisse, they're really passive and about this topic until recently. Actually, interestingly, Credit Suisse, before they really got in trouble and before this whole UBS forced acquisition or merger or however you want to call it happened, they announced a big funding round of a crypto custody business here in Switzerland called Taurus. Probably the news went all over the world. You can Google it. It's they let a 60 million funding round to acquire this business. Almost like they almost acquired this business with it, in order to become the one of the prime digital asset banks or something, they say. So they have the vision to become the biggest digital asset bank or something. Well, probably this project is now a bit on hold because they have other problems, right? But so it's definitely it definitely shows that smaller banks, but also bigger banks, are more and more getting into this field. And I would be very surprised if in 5 to 7 years, not the majority of banks are offering some kind of Bitcoin and crypto offerings.
That's very interesting. So within that framework, where do you see Relai? Is this do you foresee yourself potentially becoming the largest Bitcoin only exchange in Europe? Do you want to begin offering additional products to new types of customers? Where do you see yourself going in the future, in as much as you feel like you can share that right now? Because I'm sure there are always considerations for when and how to share new announcements.
Yeah, no, I think that's already kind of the case, that we are the biggest and most well-known Bitcoin-only on-ramp in Europe. So if the discussion is about fiat on-ramp to Bitcoin only, like a Bitcoin-only company, then we're probably by many metrics or most metrics the biggest one. And that's also obviously the goal, to stay the biggest one, to grow massively from here, to make it really a profitable and sustainable business, raising some more money, expanding some more in terms of geography. So we have a handful of strong countries, but there are many other countries in Europe as well. So expansion in terms of geography, but also in terms of product offerings, product lines, and also customer segments. So that there's a lot to expand and grow and scale still, but all with the goal of bringing Bitcoin in an easy way to 400 million Europeans, right? And to hopefully in the process become or stay the biggest Bitcoin-only fiat on-ramp. Because as said before, we really believe that in the next 10 years, a lot of people and a lot of money will need to flow from the old, broken fiat-based financial system to the new sound Bitcoin financial system. And we're the bridge to that, really facilitating, making it easy for people to do this step.
I tell you what, though, if any Europeans are listening right now, take advantage, as I'm sure you probably already are, take advantage of this KYC-free opportunity until sometime in 2025, you said? That's such an incredible opportunity. It seems like such an easy way to get those KYC-free sats. And I really wish an opportunity like that were as simple here in the United States. I know there are ways to do it, but that's an incredible opportunity. So for Europeans who are listening to this right now or may listen to it in the future, take advantage of that because that's such an incredible opportunity. Julian, before we finish up, any final thoughts that you might have? I'd appreciate it if you'd share those for the audience. And then if you would, share with people where they can go to find out more about you and Relai.
Of course. Thank you. What's on my mind as a final thought? I mean, what's really interesting to me, but I'm sure I'm talking to the wrong people here now, because everyone that is listening to your podcast or any Bitcoin podcast out there is already kind of waking up to the fact that our financial system is broken. But for me, it's still fascinating to see where we are at now, and it's great for us as like the young generation really to live through that. I feel like we are in the middle of a financial crisis that is way bigger than the last financial crisis, 2008-9, with all the bank failures. Like I could never have imagined until half a year ago that the UBS will be forced by the Swiss government over a weekend to buy Credit Suisse because it was broke. This is really crazy to me. And a lot of these things like the First Republic Bank and the Silicon Valley Bank failure and all these failures that are kind of being bailed out, like these huge banks that are being bailed out indirectly by the government, and these trillions of dollars that are just printed out of thin air to kind of save the economy somehow, but then creating these huge inflation rates, which are around 8 to 10% officially, way higher than 20% unofficially. Really, our money is melting away within 10 years or smaller than 10 years time frames. Our money is cut in half, or the purchasing power of our money is cut in half. All these things, like people need to wake up to that. People on the street, and I know that the people that are listening to your show here are probably already aware, but please tell your friends and tell your family as well that like they probably want to act a little bit. I'm not telling them to go all in Bitcoin, but maybe just educate yourself a little bit about Bitcoin, whether this could be a potential alternative, maybe also gold, maybe you have something else that works for you, but just stop kind of trusting the financial system. The fiat world is kind of over, and we need to find a solution here all together as a society if we want to make it. These would be maybe my thoughts. A bit negative, but also very hopeful and positive for the future. Just think we are in a crisis, and every crisis also means opportunity, right? So we, as the young generation now, I feel like we have the responsibility and the opportunity to make it all better. That's it. And where you can find out more about us, about me, is basically on all the social media channels. Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn, Relai's on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, Relai's on Twitter. That's probably our best channels to get in touch with us. We're also on Instagram, and we have a good website that's quite informative, with also a blog and a lot of information on it. Actually, we also do a podcast, a Relai Bitcoin podcast, where we interview cool people. We already have had Jeff Booth on there, Natalie Brunel, for example, and Dan Held. And, great people that are educating the world about Bitcoin. So, pay us a visit and let us know if you have feedback.
Excellent. Julian, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Josh.
Well, friends, it's a wrap. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Business Bitcoinization Show. If you want to reach out to either me or Julian, you can find our links down in the show notes. And if you're in Europe and want some KYC-free sats, consider Relai. As always, keep building, keep growing, and until next time, keep living and leading well.